How are you guys? Oh my goodness. This is like the first time in forever I've come on live at night. This is crazy. What is wrong with me? And I'm awake. That's the crazy part. All right. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name's Raven Woods, and I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks the IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. Now, for those of you who are new, catching me, I always say maybe 1 to 3 times, then you're a newbie, okay? So you want to post a 1 below. I want to get to know you. I want to know who you are. If you want to say something about your child, do they have Down syndrome or autism, whatever you want to add, that would be awesome. For those of you who are oldies but goodies, you guys know that I love you to death. Post a 2 below. Say hi to all the newbies out there. And make sure to click notifications and head over to the group because all my lovelies are over there, okay? So if you like watching me on here, you'll love the group because it's a place where everybody collaborates. And I think you guys collaborate a whole lot better than I collaborate, okay? But I am very much involved in the group and I love, love, love that. So let's get started, okay? So post your questions in the comment section, okay? If you're catching the replay, again, post a 1 below if you're new, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie, and post your questions because I do go back and look at them and I will answer them, okay? Hi, Monique. How are you? Welcome. All right. Autism. Gotcha. That's what my daughter has. Okay. So make sure you guys say hi, okay? Don't be shy. I can't tell you how many people have said to me, Raven, I've watched you for months. And then they all of a sudden come out of the woodwork. Don't do that. I want to get to know you now, not later. Well, I want to get to know you later too, but you know, nonverbal. Okay. All right. Hopefully he's in speech. He or she is in speech. All right. So we're going to get started. Keep posting your questions. If I don't answer them right away, I'm going to get to them. Okay. I promise. But I like to stay on subject, but I will kind of go back and forth. Okay, so today we're going to kind of talk about, for some people, it's a sticky subject, complaints. All right. You know, we talked about yesterday what it means to be sue happy and, you know, what it meant that, you know, IDEA is not changing. So the secretary proposed that nothing change. All right. So everything in regards to IDEA and the IEPs and that sort of thing is not going to change. When your child starts school, everything goes back into play. The minute school reopens, if there's still time for ESY, then that's still in play. Okay. So make sure that you take advantage of that if that is available to you. And if you're having online IEPs, that's one of the top things you need to be asking for. And, you know, recently we've been talking in the group in the IEP challenge. You guys got to join so you can hear that. One of the things we talked about is objective versus subjective thought process. Okay. Us parents have a lot of what's called subjective thought process, and subjective thought process is our feelings. You know, as parents, we, you know, have these feelings that are completely natural and they're normal and they're normally right. All right. So we go into the IEP meetings and we're like, my child needs speech and my child needs this. And we get so passionate about what we have to say and the things we know our children need, but nothing to back it up. Just our gut feeling, which should be enough, right? But it's not. All right. So objective is when you have that gut feeling and have that subjectiveness and the passion, but you also have the objective things that you can then provide. All right. That can be an evaluation. That can be an IEE. But make sure that it's something that you can hand over as far as a visual for them to see in regards to what you're requesting. It can also be video, but you want to make sure that you have numbers and things to go by. Hey, my child was here in 2019 and now they're here. This is why they need XYZ. Okay. So that's objective presentation in regards to asking for what you want. And honestly, that's kind of just something that I'm good at, is listening to the situation, hearing you out, feeling it out, understanding, that you got a lot of passion and emotion behind your words, and then kind of navigating as to, okay, this can be my loophole. All right. So that's how somebody with a non-emotional attachment can then think differently. That's why advocates are pretty cool to have if you have a good one. So let's talk about complaints. Okay. Hey, Jesse, how are you? Monique says, how can I get my school district to more school for home since we are doing virtual? What do you mean, more what for home? Get more school district to tell me what you want more of. Okay, so let's just start from the beginning with complaints, okay? So we're going to go through the process, but I'm going to get into the real good ones, okay? So stick with me, all right? So the first thing, if you're not happy about something, you want to go to the team, okay? Now, who is on your team is probably different than who's on my team because I'm their worst nightmare. All right. So as you possibly become their worst nightmare, then your team may change just a little bit. That's just putting it lightly. And that's fine, because then at least you get decision makers on your team versus the people that can't really make decisions, which ticks me off in the first place. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Costco, like $9.99 or something. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, what I want you to understand is, so you're upset about something, you send an email to the team, okay? And see what happens, okay? It depends on what you're going to get, depending on what the situation is. Anytime we ask for something that we all of a sudden, like, say you guys, just hypothetically, say you guys don't know a whole lot about the IEP process. You're new, you're just starting out. This is just a whole different arena for you, which it totally was for me too. And it's a foreign language of a process, as I say all the time. And they know that about you. And then all of a sudden, maybe you had a one-on-one with me for 3 to 4 hours. And you got it. You know what I mean? You like went in there and it was a totally different ball game, right? So they're going to address you differently when you go from here to there, and they're just thinking, what the heck just happened? Did she just get, a bum rush of a course here, or what happened? So they're going to be a little bit taken off guard. So what you're going to get is a defense mechanism coming back in an email to you. So you have to be prepared for that. So many parents, that I've done emails for, I send a very demanding email, what I call a very chronological, straightforward, factual email. And the response back is something that takes them back. They're like, oh my gosh, this is what they just responded to. So instead of thinking of things like that, I look at, okay, what is it they're really thinking? Why did they respond like that? What, and I usually know because I sent the email, but you have to be able to navigate what they're feeling to know. And in my course, I teach this all the time. You have to know the problem to be able to solve it. So you have to know what their problem is, or what their issue is, of maybe why they're saying no, for you to be able to solve that problem and to be able to present and persuade them differently by knowing what the problem is. Okay. And a lot of times parents will go in and they have all this emotion and they listen, and things get kind of hiccupy because they're not used to, addressing things, in a way that they normally would, like if you talk to me or you talk to your friend and, you're talking to them just normally and you're ready to go. Right. And then you get into that meeting and things kind of just fall apart. And, that's a normal thing. This is in reference to your kid, and that's understandable. So team first, okay? Team is where the email goes first, just to kind of do the whole respectful ranking thing. Do I write my team? No. But you guys need to start there, okay? Then you move on to the director of special education, special services, whatever they're called, okay? So one thing that you could do that I actually suggest, because this kind of puts them all on the spot, is email your team and the director of special education always. Okay, so what does that do? That puts the director of special education, so you're emailing, whoever you're emailing is who goes into who you email. Everybody else is CC'd, all right? So who you're directing the email to is the person, and then everybody else that you want the email to go to is CC'd, okay? So that kind of skips the other people, you know, as far as like having to do the team, then the director of special education, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's just make it easy. Hi, Nancy. How are you? Welcome, welcome. Yes, if you're dropping in and hopping on, post a 1 below. If you're new, that's 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 times you've seen me live. And if you're an oldie but goodie, guys, say hello and post a 2 below. I want to see you guys and talk to you. All right, so moving on. All right, there's an issue. You complain to the team and the director of special education. All right. And if it's something that's serious, where, okay, we're talking about complaints today, the next thing you want to do is make a state complaint. All right. Hey, Keela, how are you, girl? So state complaints are not something to be scared about at all. Okay, it's super easy. However, it takes me hours for mine. I'll be very honest with you. And it's taken a lot less recently because I got smart. And I realized, okay, I need to make sure that all my files are, number one, like I put in an IEP tip, have everything emailed to you. IEPs, PWNs, everything, evaluations, etc. All right. Then you take it and you just literally put it into a file, all right, on your desktop. Emails you can download and put them into a file. All right. And so I separated everything into emails, evaluations, IEPs, PWNs. You know, I put it all separately so then I knew where everything was, and then I would label it as to what it is. So now everything's together. So if I ever need to send out a complaint, or if I ever need to send out anything, it's all together. So if you guys start off that way now me, I had to get everything together from years, okay? But you guys, if you're just starting out, then you guys can just literally put it all together right now and just start off the right way on the right foot. If you have things to get together and you have things on paper, just scan it into your computer and then put it into a file. It's so much easier like that. And what I do is I put it in a Google Doc. I also put it in, or Drive. I put it on into Dropbox. And then I also put it in a hard drive so that I have it in several places, because you never want to lose it. So then you have it in a separate hard drive. You have it in Google Drive, Google Docs, whatever. And then you have it in Dropbox. Okay, so when you have it on your computer to, you know, in Drive or whatever, then if you make a complaint, you literally take that folder and export it into a zip file, and you send the zip file to who you're complaining to. Okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is state complaints. So wherever, usually that's in the capital area of where you are, but it could be somewhere different. So find out where your Department of Education is, where you make state complaints. All right. You can call them at any time, and you can, you know, ask who it is that you email it to. And they'll even send you the complaint form if you like, but you can also pull it up online. And what I do is I'll throw it into Adobe and export the PDF into a doc. All right. And then I write all over it, and I put everything together in one place. All right. And I email it off to them actually right there from the doc that I put together, you know? And it's so much easier like that. And then I put a zip file together and I email all my proof. Okay. So when you make state complaints, that can be for whatever reason in regards to the implementation of the IEP. It could be for service and implementation of the IEP is, say you're supposed to be getting speech and they didn't give speech to your child for 3 weeks. That was 3 weeks of non-implementation of the IEP and not adhering to the IEP as it is written. Okay? So that's important to understand. You know, when you guys go back to school, things are going to be all crazy. And I highly suggest you keep the schools accountable. All right? I used to give chances, I guess would be the word. Oh, I want to keep it, you know, good terms. I want to, you know, let things go. I want to, you know, be open and understanding and all those types of things. But as I did that, it was kind of like it was abused at that point. It became abused because they thought I would just let things go all the time. So now if there's a non-compliance, I make a complaint immediately. Okay? And it's not personal. It's business. Okay? And our kids have to come first versus us being nice and letting it go. Because if we let it go, they're thinking we're going to let the next one go and so on and so forth. Okay? Then after a state complaint, okay, and the difference between a state complaint and, say, the other complaints we're going to talk about OCR. And we're going to talk about where, obviously, you can make a complaint and you can go to due process. Okay, so OCR is civil rights. Okay, it has to do with the 504 and the laws that go with that. All right, so for example, an OCR complaint, if you really want to focus solely on really what it's about, but that it goes in depth into other things, is services, accommodations, and modifications. All right, so if in your child's IEP or in your child's 504, a service, accommodation, or modification is not provided to your child, then that is a civil right discrepancy. Okay, it's discrimination, basically, against your child and your child's disability in regards to providing a service, accommodation, benefit, modification, etc. Okay, that can include, but not limited to, the BIP. All right, so that's really important. All right, another thing that's big with OCR is discrimination in regards to race. The Boy Scout Act is another one. I'm trying to think just off on a whim. Other ones, it has to do with your rights in regards to what is going on that is not appropriate and needs to be changed. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up so I can go into more depth with you into what it means. Okay. I'm going to pull it up and show you guys. Once you disagree with the recommendations for this next school year, what can you do? That's one thing we're going to be talking about. It's actually a topic that I'm going to be talking about pretty soon, because a lot of people are having IEP meetings right now, which they're actually supposed to do. So that's good that they're doing it. However, the issue is they're trying, in some situations, they're trying to change things, and you don't want to change your IEP unless it needs to be changed, and you definitely don't want it to change in regards to COVID. All right, so unless your school system is doing mandatory virtual training and things need to be added to the IEP in regards to that, do not change your IEP to benefit COVID. Does that make sense? You do not want to do that. That will really hurt you when it comes to the school year. All right, because they're going to say, oh, well, we have this. And, then you're going to be fighting for things that you want back that they took off. And then it's going to become a nightmare, and you don't want to go down that route. So don't change your IEPs. Okay. You can add an amendment for a period of time, which is whatever it is. You keep the IEP the same, but you add whatever the amendment is. Does that make sense? So if the amendment is, that they're going to provide speech 2 times a week online, then it can say during May to August, this is what's going to be provided. And then in August, this then resumes. Okay. So it can take the place of for a period of time, and then the normal IEP then resumes. So you can have it to where it's specified as to what's up. All right. And you don't have to remove anything. You just add an amendment, and it's just a change for a period of time. All right. Just like if a child went to a private day school for 1 year. All right. Usually it's for 1 year, and then you have an IEP and you talk about where's the appropriate placement for the next year. And, you actually have the option to go back to the district school. Okay. They can't just, unless it's like behavior issues and certain things, they can't just say, oh, you're going here, but if it's one thing in regards to behavior is a big one. So, okay, I have it pulled up. All right, guys. So OCR is responsible for enforcing what's called the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, okay, of 1973. All right. So it implements basically and prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability by the recipients of federal financial assistance from the department. All right. So what that means is schools are federally funded for various different things in regards to special education. All right. So it talks about the American Disabilities Act and enforcing what's called Title II. All right. And then it prohibits discrimination based off disability by public entities, which like the school system. All right. And it prohibits retaliation against like you and I in regards to advocating for our children. All right. That includes when schools will get really nasty with parents and call CPS on them, truancy charges, all kinds of stuff that schools do in reference to retaliation. It's important to make sure you document all those things. If you make like a state complaint and then all of a sudden CPS is called on you, you know what I mean? It just looks really shady, and it's a form of retaliation. All right. And that is not allowed. So Section 504 and Title II also prohibit retaliation, the rights pursuant to these statutes. And there's more that goes into retaliation. Like, for example, like bullying is under there and other things, intimidation, coercing you into doing something that you don't really want to do, but basically saying, if you don't do this, then we're not going to do this for your child. All right. And so that's really important. So that's where they kind of have jurisdiction, where the state has jurisdiction over more things. But OCR is federal, so it's, in my opinion, a lot more impactful. A lot of times if you make an OCR complaint and they are going to start investigating it, so they basically say, okay, this is sufficient enough for us to investigate it, because OCR has the option of saying, okay, this is valid or it's not valid. And so because it's the feds, they want to make sure it's something that they should be looking into. And if it is, then the school system is immediately advised. And typically the minute that happens is when they're wanting to negotiate with you, because who wants the feds sniffing around on their stuff, right? So that's something that the school system does not like, and they will definitely be all about trying to figure out, okay, what do we need to do to, get this worked out, but a lot of parents really need to focus on the settlements that are provided to them. You really have to read them, and a lot of times it's very difficult to understand, and it's one-sided. So I've never signed a settlement because I'm not going to agree to things that are one-sided. But you have to figure out, what it is you want and what it is that you're willing to give up. And if you're not, then don't sign it. If you have any questions, again, post, okay? Because complaints are, they can be kind of a confusing area for some. All right. Other complaints that you can make, for example, like to the state, is when it comes to the fidelity of implementation of anything in that IEP. It's important for all staff members within the school to make sure that they implement the IEP with what's called fidelity. All right. So you want to make sure that that is something that they do. Another thing that is important for the school systems to do is they need to share all relevant and evaluative information with you. Okay. If they don't share evaluation information with you and provide it to you before you have an IEP meeting, that's important. All right. Other complaints that a lot of people don't typically know about is when the school fails to make educational recommendations, decisions based upon the individual needs of your child. So sometimes recommendations are made based off the availability of programs, and schools can't do that. It has to be based off your child's individual need, and whether they have it available in-house or not, they still have to make it available to your child. And they can't say things like, oh, well, that's something we've never done, or, we wish we could, but that's not something we can provide here, or them denying, you the opportunity to place your child in a place that is more appropriate for them. Other things that have to do with that topic is, saying things in reference to ESY. A lot of parents are told, hey, we only offer from 9 to 2, so we can't offer any other time for your child because we only offer ESY from 9 to 2. And that's not appropriate, because if it's not something that's designated, for your child, then they can't say, oh, well, this is what we do, because that's a one size fits all. Well, we do this. Well, that's we is not in IEP. I is in IEP, not we, I. Okay. So you have to basically put that in their face and let them know. If you have a child in preschool, early childhood education, this is really important to understand too, because a lot of parents have been told, oh, we only offer preschool half a day. Well, if your child needs it full day, then that's what they need to get. All right. So you have to not allow the school system to put your child in this kind of circle of people. All right. They are an individual. What it is that they need is not going to be what my child needs. So how are they going to be put in a circle of people if it has to do with them and them alone? Okay. So you have to reel them back and let them know, hey, this is not a one size fits all. Just because the school board and the school system and the stakeholders only so-called say that they provide ESY from 9 to 2, and that's not what my child needs, then y'all need to figure it out. And I say it just like that. My child, that's not appropriate for my child. So I'm sorry that you guys just offer it from 9 to 2. That's unfortunate, because I'm sure my child's not the only one that needs more and needs more support and services. But that's not my problem. I apologize for that. Actually, no, I don't apologize. That's what I've actually said to them. Nope, I don't apologize for that. And I've said, you guys need to figure it out. This is not my problem. However, what is my problem is that you guys not take a lot of time to figure it out, because my child's not going to suffer because you guys are trying to figure something out that already is your responsibility, that you already should be doing, but I'm now having to coach you into doing your job. All right. So I'm pretty big on go after it. Go after what you want. Go after the things that are important, because it's super important to let them know, hey, I'm not backing off. You're not going to push me around. You're not going to tell me that this is what you provide when that's a one size fits all. This is what we provide. This is all we provide. This is what we do. This is how we do it. We've never done it that way, so we're doing it this way because that's where we're comfortable. Well, that's not my problem, okay? And it's not your problem. It's their problem. And you need to throw it back in their lap. No. This is your problem. You're putting my child in a one size fits all when, just so you know, I'm a smart ass, okay? So I've literally wrote to the school, all right, as I'm in front of them. I said, what does this say? Not anywhere in those letters, IEP, does it say one size fits all. This is what I've done for them before. So, how are we going to talk about this? And I've done it just like that. And sometimes it just takes a little smart assiness to get them on board. They may not like it. They may have an attitude, but they're going to do it. All right. So remember, OCR is specific to civil rights. And don't think discrimination is just color, because God, I hope that's not much of an issue anymore. Just don't get me started with that stupid topic. Because the school systems are stupid like that. But discrimination, meaning against your child's disability, is usually the hot topic, okay? And remember, discrimination, I just made one, and it was in regards to a reading specialist not adhering to my daughter's BIP. She never saw, the school system never showed the reading specialist my child's BIP, which is part of the IEP. All right, so her not seeing the BIP is number one. All right, so that wasn't her fault, but it was the district's fault. All right, so number two, she wasn't able to adhere to the BIP in regards to how to deal with antecedents, as to which is before the behavior happens, to then deal with the consequences of what happens after the behavior happens. Okay, so you have antecedents and you have consequences, and to the antecedents, okay? And so when you have a behavior and then you have a consequence to that behavior, both have things to do, and she had no idea what to do. So the antecedent, which is before the behavior, just to give you an example, is before the behavior happens. So there's things that are put into her IEP to help her not continue with that behavior. All right. And then if that behavior happens, then there's a consequence to that behavior. And then something happens there. Well, she had no idea anything about that. To top it off, even if she had seen the BIP, she would have had no idea how to implement it. Why? Because the schools don't train reading specialists or anybody else other than maybe a special education teacher, maybe, on how to implement a BIP. Did you know that? BIPs are put in place typically by a BCBA, hopefully, and it's important to make sure that the school knows how to implement it. Just like the IEP. If they don't implement the BIP, that's not adhering to the IEP. All right, so that is a civil rights complaint because the child services, benefits, and accommodations are not being provided to that child. And that is super important to happen. It's important that, here, I'll actually read it to you, what I said, if you guys want to hear it. Okay. All right. I'm pulling it up, guys. It's going to take a minute. All right. So do you guys have any questions in regards to complaints? You got your state, you want to complain to the team, then you want to make a state complaint, and then you want to make sure that it's not an OCR complaint. And if it is, then you need to make sure that you make those complaints. Don't make idle threats. Just do it. All right. Then they know that you mean business. All right. So this is what I said. All right. So one of the complaints was I named the county. And I said, failed to make reasonable modifications in policies, practices, or procedures when the modifications were necessary to avoid discrimination on the basis of disability in violation of Title II, implementing Regulation 2835.130. All right, the next one was the county failed to provide a qualified student with a disability with a free, appropriate public education by not providing benefits and services in a manner that limits or has the effect of limiting the participation of qualified handicapped persons. And then I'd give an example, and that was in regards to the behavior interventions and supports that impede learning were not implemented. Okay, so the reading specialist not being provided, the BIP was unable to then provide the modifications and accommodations in regards to the BIP. And so then behavior impeded the learning in regards to reading. Okay, and so the reading specialist was unaware of how to deal with the antecedents of the maladaptive behavior and was unable to provide the appropriate consequences in regards to the maladaptive behavior that are stated clearly in her BIP. All right. So the third complaint was the county provided different and separate benefits and services to handicapped persons, including the provisions of related aids and services designed to meet her individual needs that are as effective as those provided to others in violation of Section 504, implementing Regulation 34.103.33. Okay. And so that was in regards to the school did not have a reading specialist because there was a big fallout in August that we had. And she was let go of her position in the school. And they didn't provide about a month of reading to my daughter. So I made a state complaint in regards to that. Well, because they didn't provide the reading until a month later, when they started providing reading a month later, they said, hey, we can, because this reading specialist taught at a different school. We have a reading specialist. We're going to provide services. It's going to be after school. And that's what we're going to do. And so basically they're saying to me, okay, you either have her have reading after school or she's not getting reading until we get a new reading specialist. So of course I say no at first because I'm like, why? That's crazy. Why would she have to do it after school? But then they said, well, then we can't provide reading until we find a new reading specialist. So then I feel like, okay, my daughter's going to regress. So I'm like, okay, fine. Well, that's a civil rights issue and an OCR complaint because what that did was put my child in a category of having to have a service and accommodation given and provided to her that was different to a child with a non-disability. Okay? Because in your state's, my state's regulations, it states that our children have to be treated and given the opportunity to be provided everything that a child with a non-disability has. So because they said, oh, well, she can just have reading after school, put her in that position of, okay, well, I can't receive reading in school like every other child. I have to receive it out of school because they can't provide what's needed and appropriate for me in school. Okay, so that is a discrimination based off disability. All right. So another type complaint you can make in regards to OCR, okay, which is Office of Civil Rights, is provided a different and separate service to the child with autism or whatever the disability is by only offering certain services, okay, versus services that they need. Also, another one can be a violation of meaningful participation in the IEP. They took away your right to participate in the IEP. Not that you weren't there, but that you were there, but they took away your right to participate in the IEP because they were sidestepping you. They didn't provide valid, important, solid information that you needed in regards to participating in the right way to then make educated decisions and to be part of the team just like they were. So if they fail to give you information that they have in regards to making decisions, then that's a violation. All right. So it's basically taking away your right to participate, which is part of FAPE, as a active team member of that IEP team because you weren't provided important information that you were entitled to because they withheld that and sidestepped you. That's important. Okay. So hopefully OCR makes sense to you. There's tons of stuff online that you can look up, but it can get sticky. All right. Where I've talked to them so many times that, in regards to my complaints. So I was able to, really make sense of it. Another thing and verbiage you want to get used to saying is, you'll say your county, but you want to get used to saying LEA. Okay. So that's your county in so many words. Typically on a state complaint, you'll have to put the school and the county anyway. So when you address in your complaint, say the LEA. Okay. And then you already had put the county, you already put the school. So they already know that. So when you address your complaints, whether it be a state complaint or an OCR complaint, you will say the LEA, da, 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 da. Okay. And so it's important to try to have the right verbiage so that you write your complaints accurately. And the problem too, even with state complaints, guys, is you have to be very precise in how you say it. So you need to make sure, even though you understand what you're saying, you want to make sure that if somebody picked it up off the street, they understood exactly what your complaint was. Okay. Without you. All right. Take you out of the picture. All right. And remember, a stranger is reading this. It needs to be written in a way that that stranger is going to fully understand what it means. All right. So as far as complaints are concerned, yesterday I talked a lot about becoming Sue happy in regards to this COVID stuff. I don't suggest that. I don't. All right. It's nobody's fault. As mad as we can get as far as, our kids not getting services that they need, it's nobody's fault. But like I said yesterday, if your school system is providing mandatory online education, okay, where your child has to be there from a certain time to a certain time and they are taught, and that's just what your school system and district is doing, then and only then is the IEP in full play at that time, and that school system and district needs to provide whatever it is in your child's IEP, whether that be 2 days a week of speech at 30 minutes, 2 days a week of OT at 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it is, that needs to be provided. If your child has ABA of 10 hours a week, that has to be provided. So if it's not in play, and it's just, your school is providing what's called distance learning, which is typically when a school system and the teachers will check in on a weekly basis. They're usually available for 1 to 2 hours per day. Then that's distant learning, and that's the IEP is not in play at that point. All right. So a lot of people have kind of misinterpreted the fact that the secretary did not take IDEA away. IDEA is still in full play. However, no IEP is in full play when schools are closed. It's kind of like on the weekend. You can't hold the school accountable for something that happens on a Saturday, okay? Well, when schools are closed like now, until your governor opens things up, it's closed. So there's no denial of FAPE. There's no denial of implementing the IEP because it's not in play right now. IDEA is not changing, but your personal IEP is not in play until everything opens back up. The school systems open back up, not open back up, so you need to make sure you understand that when things open back up, it may be summertime, but that doesn't mean ESY is off the table. So make sure that when things open back up and your child's entitled to ESY, you need to go after that. So you need to start addressing that right now, okay? If you're having online IEPs, make sure that it's done by Zoom or Skype. Make sure you record it on your phone or have a laptop or another computer on and recording while you're on that Zoom. And you also want to make sure that they understand that it needs to be face-to-face. There's no picture or telephone calls. You do it on a Zoom or a Skype and you see each other face to face as if you were sitting at a table together. That is how an IEP is to take place. Don't allow the school system to say to you that it's against FERPA laws to hold an IEP on a Zoom. That is a bunch of malarkey, crap, whatever you want to call it. That is false information they are feeding you to see if you will digest it and accept it. Don't accept it. Okay, that's incorrect. And I would write an email right back to them and say that's actually factually incorrect. And it is not against FERPA laws. If you guys want kind of the verbiage, let me know. I can pull it up for you and give you it so that you can put it in your emails. But don't allow them to gaslight you into thinking a different way. All right. So does anybody have questions in regards to complaints? I think this is a good topic to talk about just because you should know what's out there, what's available to you. Okay. So that you can deal with it as things come up. And don't be afraid of complaints. There's no fear needed at all, okay? If anything, it's going to make the school system take you seriously. All right? Okay, so Nancy says, once you disagree with the recommendations, the next school year placement, what can you do? Well, don't sign the IEP. Send an email and say, I disagree with the recommendations. Another IEP needs to be held so that we can come to a mutual agreement as to what is in what is needed and appropriate for my child. Okay. Nancy says, if the CSE meeting occurred, what's a CSE meeting? Occurred and the chairperson finalizes the IEP regardless of the parents disagreeing with the placement of classroom. That can't happen. That's that's a civil rights complaint right there, because then you weren't an active member as to placement of that child. They can't place a child without a parent's permission, number one. And number two, there has to be collaboration as to what's going on, why that's happening. Okay. And so if that's the case, make a state complaint right away. And that has to do with them not allowing you to be an active member of that IEP team. That's also an OCR complaint. But you can't do both at the same time. So you have to choose. I would actually go after OCR first. And if, or you can do a state complaint. All right. And after the state complaint is done, you have 60 days that you can say it wasn't founded. All right. So then you can go and do an OCR complaint for the same thing if it wasn't founded, and you have 60 days to do that. All right, for that same complaint. All right, because they look at things a little bit differently. Now, the state has a little bit more jurisdiction as far as certain things, but OCR has focused things that they go after. All right, and that's like the civil rights law, like ADA, that sort of thing. All right, so we're done for tonight. I've talked enough. All right, so does anybody have any questions in regards to complaints and things like that? Again, if you're hopping on, if you're catching the replay, post a 1 below, post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie, and ask questions. I will come back on and I will answer them, or I will post. Make sure you join the group and click notifications so you know when I go live. But if you guys have any questions, just let me know. But I think it's important to go over complaints, not because you want to make complaints, but if you have to, you need to know what you need to do. The importance of what you say and how you say it is important. All right, and understanding that being very detailed and having the right verbiage is key. All right. So I will talk to you guys soon. Hopefully you guys have a good evening. It's 9:39 here. It's getting late. But yeah, post your questions below, and I'll probably go live sometime Sunday here. And if you have topics, I'm going to post a picture asking you guys to post below what types of topics you guys want to hear about, especially during this time. It's easy, you know, when school's in session, but with all this, everybody has different types of topics that they want to talk about. So I'm going to give you guys the freedom to post what you want, and I will go through them. All right. So I will talk to you guys soon. Have a good night, and make sure to post your questions, and I promise to answer them. Okay, guys? All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.